time to put the piston rings on the pistons. But before we start with that, let's see how that all works. So on a piston we have 3 piston rings. All the way to the bottom is the oil ring, then it's the second compression ring, and then it's the first compression ring, which is all the way to the top. The oil piston ring consists of 3 parts: the side rails, upper and lower. One is further up, the other one is further down, and in between them there is the spacer. Sits there in order to keep them in space. Then we have the second compression ring, and then we have the top compression ring. Now Suzuki suggests that we do that every 120-degree angle. They say that the first side rail, because we have to start build up from bottom to top in order to make it easy for us, it has to be somewhere there on the sides, not at the front, not at the back, not on the complete side, somewhere there. Then we put the spacer, and the spacer has to be, the end gap has to be 120 degrees after. We have here, here 120, and here. These are the angles. This is the exhaust side. Remember the arrow here? That is the exhaust side, and this is the inlet side. The spacer goes like that, and then we have another 120 degrees counterclockwise. We have the other end gap of the upper side rail. Then we have another 120 degrees. We have the second piston ring aligned with the lower side rail, and the top compression ring goes 120 degrees counterclockwise, which is on the inlet side, like the spacer. That's the way we have to put the piston rings according to Suzuki. And this is the code right there at the top for standard piston rings. And here we have fresh piston rings. And if we can see, as you can see, can you see it says RN? This is the second piston ring. The one with the R, this one, that's the top piston ring. And remember, the letters always in every piston, in every vehicle, have to look upwards. So we put the spacer first, and they want the spacer to be on the inlet side. The end gap, which is here, to be on the inlet side. Then we put the lower side rail, and that opening should be up there. Make sure you put it on the lower side of the piston ring. Done. And then as we have the end gap here of the spacer and the lower side rail there, counterclockwise another 120 degrees is here. That's where the upper side rail is gonna go. Make sure you put it on top of the spacer, and that's it. Easily done. One gap is here, the other gap is there, and the gap of the spacer, it's here, but you can't really see it. So we have RN, and the letters need to look upwards. So the second piston ring has to face this side. And that's where it is. And the top piston ring, which is marked as R, has to face on the inlet side. And the letters facing up as usual. And that's it. It's more than certain that through the procedure to put them on inside the cylinder blocks and put the cylinder block onto the engine, they're gonna move a bit. Just try to have that alignment until you put them in, as much as you can. If it's not 100%, it doesn't really matter. It's not the end of the world. Okay, now some assembly lube on the pin of the piston. Just good enough to lubricate it for the first 5-10 seconds. We'll leave it like that, and let's put it back on the conrod. Tiny amount of lubrication. So push. All the way down there to give us all the space we need to put the circlip in place. Now this is where things get tricky and you need some help. Okay, let's put that in here. You guessed it right, this adds as security for the circlip not to fly all over the place. At least it won't fall into the crankcase and ruin my day. make sure that end gap here does not align with that. It's better actually if it's 180 degrees on the other side. Bit of oil in here as well. On the bottom side. And now the whole cylinders, whole side up and down, are absolutely lubricated. And after a lot of swearing, managed to put them in. And it works, it runs freely, so no problems here. I have to say it was far more difficult on the FZR. They run up and down freely, so all good. Let's put the nut here, so in case we turn, nothing's gonna lift and take everything out of place. And this is the code for the cylinder head gasket. I'm gonna place it here. Now in these spots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they go, these ones, all 6 of them. You have to go in there to seal. In the wrong place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have to put the cylinder head onto the cylinder block. The oil return pipes from the cylinder head down to the crankcases are these. I took the cover off with the sandblasting cabinet, scrape off the surface so I have a good grip, and I'll respray them. I'll mask here, here and on the other sides, like that, and ready to be sprayed with primer. Let's put this on. Just a tiny amount of oil. Just a small break here. This is the M Motorcycles channel. Mark from United States, he does a fantastic job on painting motorcycles and put decals on it. He has quite a few hints and tips on how to. I really believe it's worth checking this channel. At least I do. I wish I could bring my motorcycles there. And after having cleaned all the surface for the last time, just a tiny amount of oil over here and a bit amount on the O-rings themselves, just like that. Now this is the bit tricky part. We have to push these in there and make sure they sit nicely without destroying the O-rings. Copper ones, they go in the middle, all 8 of them. And there is something, if you notice, about them. See, on this side they have a sharp edge. On this side the edge is a bit smoother, so the smoother edge facing upwards. While the other 4, the metallic ones, which I didn't buy a new one because these are equally well, same story, the sharp edge face downwards, the smooth edge face upwards. These go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have dome nuts and normal nuts. The dome nuts go where the copper ones are because they're 8, while the other 4 go on the metallic ones. And I put all the bolts down with the ratchet. It's a 14mm all the way down, so everything can sit on a crisscross pattern, of course, like Suzuki suggests. And I didn't put more than 1 kilo or 1.5 kilos pressure, and that's by hand. Now let's do the torque settings as we should. And the Stormy head nuts are 35 to 40 Newton meters. I'll go with 40. All done. And this bolt right here, it's 8 to 12 Newton meters. I'll go with 12. Let's put this thing in there. First things first, let's put the cable all the way to come on the other side. Done. And we have to put the trigger so we have a good point to adjust, time the engine. So that goes in there. Obviously there's no other way, and once it sits we put that, but I'm going to put a bit of Loctite here. Done, torqued to the correct specifications, and let's go for the next. Let's put the inlet camshafts first. And to do that, let's oil a bit the joints. In for inlet, there's a mark to tell you the right side. So as you're riding, this goes on the right side. We won't be needing that anymore. Slider, that's the spot it has to go in, but the easiest way to go is just put this in here, let it hit on the side of the wall at the front of the engine, and as you slide it down, make sure that tip is gonna sit in, and that's it. That sits in here and you're done. And then exhaust camshaft, right to F front, I suppose. Let's do the timing now. So we have to rotate the engine and bring that mark aligned with the pickup coil. And it is aligned with pickup coil. We'll take it from there. Then the second mark we're looking is exhaust camshaft. Now there is arrow 1 with number 1, arrow 2 with number 2, and arrow 3. Forget about everything else, go to arrow number 1. That arrow has to be directly on flush on this surface with the rocker cover. Now I haven't put the camshaft onto his bearings. I want to roughly do it and then I'll put everything down, but I want to show you a good idea of how and what we're looking for. So this arrow looks flush here. Now it doesn't look exactly flush, but this is because the camshaft is not fully seated in place. And as we have that number 1 over here, we go to number 2 arrow, this one. It will always indicate in one of the pins on the chain. It doesn't matter which one, they're all the same. Now I've marked this one with a white paint. Now you have to count 21 pins all the way, and the 21st has to align with number 3 arrow looking upwards on the inlet camshaft. So number 2 on exhaust and number 3 on inlet camshaft have to go 21 pins. Then these two camshafts are aligned together, and of course they're aligned with the crankshaft. Now I'll put everything down, do a bit of turns on the engine and see if everything's fine as they're supposed to be. So we have the A here, we have the B's here, we have the D and the C. So let's start with the A. These are the A's. You can see the letter A clearly. One is in a square, the other one is in circle, the other one inside a triangle. The A square goes here, the A circle goes here, and the A triangle goes here. So we have square, circle, triangle. And that's the sequence for pretty much each one of them. So if we have the C, which is right behind it, we have the C square here, the C circle here, the C triangle here. Let's do the A's first. Always apply a bit of oil. Don't forget to lubricate threads. Then we have the B's, which is on the exhaust camshaft, and B square, B circle. B square is going to go there, and B circle is going to go here. There's no B triangle, it's just 2 B's on this side. And if you can't remember which side, you can tell by the width, but remember, from riding position, you're sitting here, and this is the front. You have to be able to read the letter normally. If it's upside down, then you got the whole thing upside down. C's square, circle, triangle. Triangle goes here, the circle goes in the middle, and the square goes here. And last but not least, the D's. Square goes on the outside, and circle goes on the inside. And last but not least, the idler. This, not that, but this side looks forward, and it goes right there. Okay, now let's see if the marks are in place. So I'm going to put tensioner in there. You press that in and you take the pressure away. That's only temporarily, so I didn't even tighten these, it's all by hand. And then I put the back plate with a spring and it pushes the tensioner all the way in. And again, that's gonna go by hand. And I'm gonna turn the engine around a couple of times, two full turns of the crankshaft. It should be okay to tell us if we're okay or not. And let's see where the marks on the camshaft, both camshafts are. Yeah, arrow down there, which is pretty flush with the engine. The rocker cover joint. And then number 3 is on top. So we have correct marks here. Correct mark number 1 arrow flush with the engine rocker cover, and then we have number 2 mark arrow upwards and number 3 mark arrow upwards, and in between number 2 and number 3 we have 21 pins. And torque settings is 8 to 12 Newton meters. I'll go with 12. Let's do first the exhaust. The same is for the chain needler pulley. But before we go to the rocker cover, we need to do valve adjustment. To adjust the valves, both cams to be adjusted need to look outwards. Just like that. So the manual says 0.10, 0.15 millimeters. Let's go with that. 0.10, 0.15. Just to make something clear now, Suzuki states that the valve gap should be from 0.10 to 0.15, either valve. Now I choose to do it 0.10 for inlet and 0.15 for exhaust. You can do either, from 0.10 to 0.15. I can't see any gap here, it's too tight. So I have that little tool to help me, that little tool. This is going to help me adjust the valve. It's a 3mm rectangular socket that grabs onto the rectangulars of the valve adjuster. The 8mm is going to help me loosen it up. And I'll loosen both. Loosen both a bit to make sure that the 0.10 fits in there. And while I have this one quite loose, what I might do is just, now it's too tight, I can't drag it. I have to be able to drag. Don't put pressure on it. If you put pressure, of course it's going to drag a lot. Just hold it nice in place. When I tighten it a bit more, it becomes more difficult. When it becomes more difficult to drag, no. Just loosen it up to run freely, but feel the drag. Once we do that, we're happy with it. Just tighten as much as we can by finger. Then tighten the whole thing and check. Yeah, feels like before. So that's good. Let's go to the next one. 10 as well. Now that's too tight. Just a bit loosen up. Be able to drag relatively easy. Done by hand. Perfect. Double check. Perfect. And you can't hear it because there is a bit of lubricant in there, but I can feel the ticking noise that the 0.10 should be doing. So that was the fourth cylinder we just adjusted, both valves, all four valves. And since the ignition timing is 1342, that means after 4, 3, 4, 2 comes 2. So 2, it's going to be the next one to align the way we want our lobes to be aligned. Let's see, that lobe to look that side and this lobe to look on this side. And that's where we are. Both lobes on this end, and now we can adjust on cylinder number 2. And I'm not going to waste your time anymore with that. If you like these videos so far, please give them a like, do subscribe if you want, and share them with friends. It will be great for me to know that you do enjoy these videos. I made them solely because I just want to help someone who doesn't know how to, but they have basic mechanic skills. Let's put the breather cap on the rocker cover with a brand new gasket. To make sure you put the gasket correctly and which side goes where. Yeah, there is that here, but there is only one little notch out of the 4 points, only one of them has a little notch, and so does the gasket, so it goes like that. That goes backwards. And I'll have to put the rocker cover gasket and the small gaskets here. That's the code for the rocker cover gasket. This is the code for the smaller pieces that cover the spark plugs. And that's the other code. Just push it in there. And it's quite tight to stay in place. Now let's figure out the gasket. So this comes like that. And what now Suzuki suggests, put a bit of cement in these spots and the half moons. And that's all we need. Put it on the other side as well. Let's put the rocker cover on. Make sure the half moons sit nicely. Let's change all the seals for all the bolts for the rocker cover with that. (12 to 15 Newton meters). I put it on 15, and there's no specific pattern for them, so I'll go with common sense. I'll do these two first, little by little. Now there's 4 union bolts, as they call them, that they go in here. They're hollow and they provide lubrication. I don't like that, so I'm gonna renew it with brand new copper ones. And the torque settings are the same, so we got done. Now let's work on the oil pan a bit, and let's replace this gasket with that one. Bit of grease around the gasket, both surfaces, and then let's put that on. Now we have to put these 2 return pipes, oil return pipes, that they bring all the oil from the cylinder head down to the oil pan. And then I'll have to tighten that 6mm bolt with 13 Newton meters. And that one goes here, which means that I have to remove that, and then I'll have to tighten it 24 Newton meters final. Let's do that. Another thing, that has to go in there, and it has an O-ring, which is a bit distorted. That's why we're going to replace it with that. So I'm going to put a bit of grease around here to keep it in place, and that's the only reason I'm doing that, just to keep it in place so it won't fall as I'm trying to put the oil pan. That's a clean oil pan, and all it needs is a brand new gasket. And as usual, a bit of grease. Well, that's the way it's gonna go. This is the front of the engine, this is the rear. There's only one way the gasket can go. Stick it. Now there's 3 longer than the rest bolts. This one, the longest, goes here, and the other 2, slightly shorter, go here and here. And I left one on purpose. If you notice, this is the only one that has a gasket, a plastic gasket on it. That's the only one. There's a specific way that this one goes. Let me show you. So this one, the one with the gasket, goes right here. Why? Let me show you. Because it bolts right down here, which plenty of oil is going to be in here, and the problem is that the oil can leak and go on the outside and create some very not pleasant situation, oil over the place. So that's why this one has a gasket only, and we have to tighten everything even. 12 to 16 Newton meters. I'll go with 16. One detail we haven't put in here is that one. All we need to do now is put that cover on with a brand new gasket like this. Tight. Let's put the gasket first. Make sure that touches there. Out of all the bolts, only one, again like the oil pan, has a gasket. This one has to go here. Nowhere else, just here. The longer one goes here. And then there's 2 shorter than the rest of them. The very short, the shortest of all, goes down here, and the slightly longer goes in there. And now let's put this cover on with this gasket. And this is pretty much the end of this video. Just put the 5 bolts and you're done. On the next one I'm gonna put the generator, the clutch, the starter motor, and finish with the engine. Thank you for watching. Give a like, subscribe, or do a comment if you like this video. Until the next time, please look after yourselves and families.